gnarled, but this doesn't have anything to do with the protest, nothing to do with road closures. This is border traffic. And the city says that the last of the barriers that were blocking access from any of the side roads did come down over the weekend. And for one business that we spoke with during all this, news that the road has fully reopened comes as a relief. He's about 3 kilometers away from where the protest happened, and he even had barriers set up outside his business.
It affected our sales quite a bit, but now we're picking it back up and getting back to normal.
Have you noticed a big difference today?
Yeah, I mean, it's the last 4 or 5 days we've noticed quite a big of a difference. And I think people are starting to talk, their neighbors telling them that it's okay to come down. Because there was a lot of people that just wouldn't come down for a long time. I think it could have been handled a little bit better, but, politics, I don't want to get into politics because you go from one side to the other. But I mean, I think they should have cleared up a lot sooner than what they did. In the period of that the truckers blocked it till they opened up, we're probably down $30,000 or $40,000 in sales.
Some of the politicians, they have asked for compensation for business owners like they got in Ottawa. Is that something you'd like to see?
I mean, sure. Every little bit helps, A lot of people think that we have a great big business. We do, but we have great big expenses as well.
I think it was because of the rerouting of the roads, the turns, and all the police, and it was a nightmare. It feels amazing seeing everyone's faces again, and we are all very happy to have them in.
Well, it was troublesome for a while. You really had to go out of your way to get across Huron Church.
Yeah.
So I really wasn't happy with the situation.
Do you come to Fred's a lot?
I try and come once a week. Yeah, I don't think I came the whole time the road was closed. Well, I think they're entitled to something. How much, I'm not sure, especially if it's going to come from the federal government. Then, yeah, that'd be great. They should get something. And just for the record, I wasn't happy with those truckers. Absolutely not. It's too bad we couldn't make them pay. That's over now. It's not a problem anymore, thank God.
And Jacob, we know that this is a relief for many, like Fred's, like businesses like Fred's, but officials closed those sections of road for a reason. So are there any concerns now with reopening the road completely?
Well, Windsor Police, they are saying that they continue to see slow-rolling vehicle protests throughout the city, but they are working with the organizers of those protests to make sure they happen in a safe way. They also say that they are continuing to monitor along Huron Church Road to make sure there are no illegal protests that start up again or anything like that. Now, the city and the Chamber of Commerce and other stakeholders have asked the federal government for compensation, like you saw businesses in Ottawa get for the protests that shut down the city core there. I asked Eric Kuzmerchuk, the MP for Windsor-Tecumseh's office, about that earlier today, and they say that he's been in touch with the Prime Minister and Deputy Prime Minister about that, and that there are conversations ongoing. But as for the compensation right now for the businesses, that's still uncertain.
Thanks for this, Jacob. CBC's Jacob Barker live on Huron Church tonight. And now from the city to the county, where much of the time the night sky is anything but clear, especially in the winter. And the light pollution from greenhouses is affecting the view beyond the clouds. It's interfering with the ability of the Royal Astronomical Society of Canada to use its observatory near Comber. Dale Molnar has more.
This is what the sky looks like on some nights at the Hallam Observatory near Comber. When the observatory opened about 20 years ago, it was surrounded by nothing but farm fields. But since then, several greenhouses have crept up Highway 77 from Leamington, and the light pollution sometimes drowns out the view of about 80% of the light coming from stars.
The proliferation of the greenhouse industry, while it's been great for the local economy, has had detrimental effects on the sky quality at night. The area of the constellation Orion contains a lot of interesting objects.
Randy Groundwater says the light pollution obscures some of the most interesting celestial bodies worth observing.
The worst night here, from due east to due west and straight overhead, that entire part of the sky, half the sky essentially, is virtually starless.
Dan Taylor is also with the Astronomical Society. He helped get Point Pelee designated a dark sky preserve. He says the light pollution is affecting research work.
I was a member of a scientific association in the United States that collected information on specific stars. Now, because of the light pollution, it's much more difficult to do that kind of work.
The Ontario Greenhouse Vegetable Growers is fighting a Leamington bylaw limiting the light pollution. The parties are due in court this June. But Executive Director Joseph Rocky believes the amount of light pollution can be reduced by about 90%.
We're trying to work very, very diligently with the municipality. I think we're doing the best we can on both sides, and we will come to a solution. And I feel very confident that that'll be, as soon as possible.
If not, Groundwater says the observatory might have to move. However, it's very hard to find anywhere near here that is dark enough, and it would be impossible to designate the immediate area a dark sky preserve.
And if we continue to lose the sight of the dark night sky here, we'll have to concentrate on other aspects of observation. For example, the moon and the bright planets.
Groundwater says preserving dark skies isn't only important for astronomers.
Before we know it, we're going to be living in some sort of perpetual twilight. And that's not a healthy state for humans or plants or animals.
The Astronomical Society members are hoping to lobby local governments to protect what's left of the night sky around here going forward. Dale Molnar, CBC News, Comber.
As Russia ramps up its punishing attacks across Ukraine, the UN Secretary General says it's time to stop the horror unleashed on civilians.
With each passing hour, two things are increasingly clear. First, it keeps getting worse. Second, whatever the outcome, this war will have no winners, only losers.
A Russian missile that struck a residential building today killed at least 2 people. Crews continue to search under the rubble for people still reported missing. Ukraine's second largest city has seen some of the worst shelling since the Russian assault began more than 18 days ago. But Ukraine's capital remains the main focus as Russian troops renew their push to seize Kyiv despite strong local resistance. A 4th round of talks between Ukraine and Russia has been put on hold until tomorrow. Ukraine today urged Europe's human rights watchdog to expel Russia after it was recently suspended from the Council of Europe. Meanwhile, the European Union is finalizing fresh sanctions against Russia over what it calls the barbaric invasion of Ukraine. Upwards of 3 million people have fled the fighting in Ukraine, and aid agencies expect that number will likely double. Canada plans to speed up the process of bringing some of them here, and more details are expected soon. But families that are waiting to welcome refugees say Ukrainians need to be brought here now. CBC's Marina von Stackelberg reports.
Here we've got 2 bedrooms. Daria Highwarren shows an empty 2-bedroom apartment. Her and her husband Demian own several units like this in Winnipeg.
We've got 4 kids, and it wasn't even well, is it okay? It was, I put my name down because that's what you do.
In just a few weeks, they hope this will be home to Ukrainian refugees. They have enough empty suites to take in up to 4 families, more in their own home if needed, complete strangers.
They'll be like family.
Welcome to Canada.
Like really, it's women and children that are coming. It's not the men. They have to stay home to fight. And basically, it'll be an extension of our family.
The crisis is personal. Demian's mother, Zoriana, was a refugee from Ukraine after the Second World War.
I know firsthand what the trauma is of families trying to rebuild their lives. Some families manage to get on their feet, and some are traumatized and never recover.
While the refugees may first arrive in larger centers like Toronto, Manitoba's large Ukrainian community hopes some will end up here. In just 3 days, the Ukrainian-Canadian Congress says more than 700 Manitobans signed up to host refugees. But there are many logistic questions to figure out: how they'll get here, get matched, and get the support they need.
These people have gone through trauma, things that they have seen, the things that these children have seen, nobody should see during their lifetime.
The Ukrainian community wants the province to help them out. The Manitoba government says it's working on a plan to settle as many Ukrainians as possible.
Potentially for kids.
Back at the empty apartment, the Haiwaran family wants the federal government to speed up the process to bring Ukrainians here.
People need to start coming over right now. They're being slaughtered.
There are people that are physically dying in Ukraine right now, and those that are coming across are in jeopardy.
The paperwork can catch up.
The Haiwarans say get the families to safety in Canada first, and the rest will fall into place. Marina von Stackelberg, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Let's turn now to COVID-19 in this province. We've gotten a lot of things wrong throughout this pandemic. So now that we've just hit the 2-year anniversary, is it time to dwell on those mistakes and discuss what we've learned? Some think we're ready for a broader COVID-19 inquiry or commission in Ontario. Hayden Waters has been looking into that and joins me now. Hayden, what would an inquiry look like?
Yeah, it can take all different forms, usually led by people like doctors, nurses, judges, scientists. Let's take SARS, for example. At the federal level, there was a review by a SARS advisory committee. Provincially, we had an independent SARS commission, as well as an Ontario expert panel on SARS. All put out reports with similar findings, but had different timelines to get their work done and varying levels of power. I talked to Dr. David Walker, a professor at Queen's University in Kingston, who chaired that expert panel. Dr. Walker thinks inquiries on COVID are inevitable and that there will be multiple.
It would seem inevitable that we will have a variety of commissions and inquiries into the way in which COVID was managed, certainly at the federal level and at many provincial levels and beyond that, multi-sectoral and others. So.
There's actually already been a commission on COVID in Ontario launched by the province. It was a time-limited investigation solely focused on long-term care, one of the hardest hit areas. Findings came out, you may remember, last year. But I'm talking about a more sweeping general overview of COVID across the board.
So Hayden, who supports this idea?
Yeah, let's start in Ontario. The Ontario NDP, the Liberals, and the Greens are all in favor of a wider COVID inquiry for the province. NDP and official opposition leader Andrea Horwath actually tabled a motion at Queen's Park last year calling for a public inquiry into COVID-19. It was dissolved when the legislature dissolved, and it hasn't been retabled. Let's hear from her.
At this point, we can probably put them together and have one public inquiry, because we need to get the answers. We need to get the answers to what we did right, what we could have done better, and how do we make sure we fix any problems that we faced before it happens again.
The province actually didn't give me a yes or no answer as to if it wants an inquiry. It told me it will use lessons learned during COVID to respond to future emergencies, and touted Ontario's low COVID mortality rate compared to other parts of the world. As for a federal review, Health Canada says now's not the right moment. A spokesperson told me the government has shown its intention to review Canada's pandemic response at an appropriate time.
Right, so we're still very much in the middle of a pandemic. So is now the right time for an inquiry?
Yeah, that came up with everyone I chatted to, including people who ran some of these past reviews. All had differing opinions on it. Some wanted the process to start now with doing things like gathering evidence, putting teams together, setting boundaries. Others say it's a little bit too early and we should be using any COVID lull to prep if there's a future wave. Doing things like figuring out what a future testing strategy looks like going forward and how to distribute things like antivirals. The timing of Ontario's provincial election in the spring came up too, and how Doug Ford and the PCs probably don't want to focus on what went wrong while out trying to campaign.
Yeah, very interesting. Thanks for this, Hayden. CBC's Hayden Waters. Meanwhile, more COVID rules are lifting. The requirements for all visitors and workers at long-term care homes, hospitals, and schools to be vaccinated has expired. The province lifting all mandates around vaccination policies for those settings as of today. Strict testing requirements also coming to an end. And it comes ahead of a broader exit of all COVID measures by the end of April. Individual organizations can keep their own requirements in place, and most hospitals say they will continue their strict vaccine mandates. Unifor says its former president, Jerry Dias, is under investigation. The largest private sector union in Canada says it received a complaint in January about an alleged breach of its constitution. Dias was notified a few days later, and then he went on medical leave shortly after that on February 6th. Then last night, he suddenly announced his resignation from the post, though the National Executive Board was notified on Friday. The union says it will not comment further until an investigative report is released in the near future. In lighter news, it is March 14th, also known as Pi Day, and it's a day to celebrate the mathematical constant pi, the first three figures being, of course, 3, 1, 4. But it's also a great excuse to eat pie. The CBC's Michael Hargraves went out to see how Windsor is serving it up.
Today, we're doing a collaboration with Riverside Pie Cafe, where we will give our savory pie with their dessert pie. And we did pre-orders, and the famous pie that got pre-ordered most from theirs is the lemon coconut pie. So it's any flavor of Zulu Eats pie with lemon coconut pie from Riverside Pie Cafe. Well, Zulu Eats, that is what we're mainly known for, our pies, our hand pies, which we have beef, chicken, vegetarian, vegan, and gluten-free. So although we do other stuff, what we are well known here in Windsor, Ontario is our pies. So these are pie crusts that we make into chips, and actually it's very common in Ghana, where I come from. Because we don't grow potatoes, regular potatoes, these are what they have for snacks. So they have plantain chips or cassava chips, and these chips which are made out of pie crust.
And then Pi Day is a little bit connected to math. Are you good at math?
Not into details, although I worked in a company where I did a lot of calculations right in my head. That part I'm good at. But when it comes to other stuff of math, no, not at all. I know enough to get by.
And now I'm craving pie, and I'm also craving a look at our forecast. And that's after the break. It is looking and feeling more like spring. Here's Ian Black with a look at your forecast.
Not such a bad day overall today. Temperatures above normal, and guess what? There's plenty more where that came from. A quite mild, almost spring-like at times this week. And we'll take that, right? At times, a little bit unsettled. Possibility of a shower or wet flurry at times overnight and tomorrow. But I think that the trend is for the temperatures to really soar. A bit of a split decision on the weekend coming up. We'll talk about that too. Let's take a look at a quick look ahead. And so you'll see temperatures falling as you move through the evening hours. So down near the freezing point early tomorrow. Wind should not be a problem. Those southwest winds become kind of variable at times overnight, maybe even a little easterly. And a slight chance of seeing a shower or a wet flurry. But then I think temperatures soar. Check it out, how come mild it is here late this afternoon, just to the south, cooler to the north, and that's where the systems tend to travel right along the jet stream. And you can certainly see some of those showers and or flurries depending where you found yourself in southern Ontario today. Okay, so let's focus in on that area there. There's a weak, what I would call a semi-stationary front, which means it doesn't really move much at times. It will sink to the south. You'll get an easterly wind, perhaps some fog patches, and then it moves back up this way. You get a southwest wind and temperatures soar, okay? So here we are tomorrow morning, and perhaps a couple of showers in the area, okay? I don't think it's going to amount to all that much. And then gradually, as you move through the next couple of days, everything lifts up towards the north, and temperatures go up, up, and away. Here's your wind. Okay, so kind of a southwest wind, and then look, it becomes a little easterly overnight as that stationary front kind of meanders around. That's why we might see a little bit of fog, but then it's more southwesterly after that, and temperatures go up. How about 13 degrees tomorrow? That's pretty nice, isn't it? Well above normal, and it gets even milder than that too. Check it out. How about 20 degrees by the time Thursday rolls around? Let's just look at that for a second. Nice stuff, nice stuff. Rain for Friday and a chance of showers Saturday before you're back into the sunshine, and beautiful weather for Sunday and Monday. Enjoy it. That's your weather.
Love seeing all those double digits. And after the break, a look at all the other beautiful signs that spring is on the way. Stay with us.
An app.
Welcome back. The temperature outside has a lot of people thinking about spring. And although it doesn't officially begin until March 20th, you'll be able to start seeing a lot of birds and other animals returning from migration and hibernation. The CBC's Mike Evans spoke to a local field naturalist about what types of early migrants we can expect to see in the days and the weeks ahead.
We have it in our heads that the robin is the first sign of spring, or one of the early signs of spring. And I would sort of have to agree, except there in Essex County, there are so many other signs of spring. There's all kinds of stuff to be looking for. It says spring has sprung.
Give me an example of something for you that you see or anyone can see that would say, yes, here we are now well on our way into spring.
Well, right now, if I was walking around Ojibwe Park or any of our natural areas, I'd be listening for chorus frogs. So one of the very earliest amphibians to come up out of the little bit of frozen, some of these marshes and some of these little wetlands areas are still frozen. But the moment a chorus frog can poke its head up above that ice, they start singing. The other thing I always say is, if you haven't seen a turkey vulture by the 15th of March, you're not looking. Turkey vultures will return. Again, turkey vultures are true migrants. They don't winter over in Essex County. They don't winter over in the northern portion of the range. So when the turkey vultures have arrived, it means spring is here.
And I've been noticing stuff like great horned owls. Is this the time of year for them to show up and start making a nest?
Horned owls are really, really early nesters, and we'll be watching some of the other big raptors too. Bald eagle, for example, we've got several sites in Essex County that they're already on eggs. They're incubating. You'll hear other owls actually calling right now. Screech owls are very vocal because they're in cavities and they're getting ready to do their nesting thing. So they are very early nesters.
Why do some of these birds migrate? Why don't they just stay where it's warm all year round?
Well, it's a great question, and it's a complicated question. So if you have the ability to stay, you do, and that's usually based on availability of food. So if you're a seed-eating bird, you stay. If you can't survive on a food source, then you have to migrate either to your food source or with your food source, as in the case with some of the bigger raptors like sharp-shinned hawks. So migrants and the need to migrate is often based on what your stomach is requiring of you.
I love that. Some of the awesome things you might see if you keep your eyes peeled while enjoying this beautiful weather. That is it for CBC Windsor News. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great night.